So we are so excited to have Dr. Diana Hill back on our Type C podcast today. Dr. Hill is a clinical psychologist and international trainer and a leading expert of acceptance and commitment therapy, or ACT. ACT is a revolutionary approach to psychology that is changing our understanding of mental health. ACT draws from the most current psychological research and contemplative wisdom. Diana bridges science with real life practices to help people grow fulfilling and impactful lives. She is the author of 4 books, including I Know I Should Exercise, but The Self-Compassion Daily Journal, the ACT Daily Journal, and her latest, which we are extremely excited to dive into, Wise Effort, How to Focus Your Genius Energy on What Matters Most. She's also the host of the Wise Effort podcast, so everyone should also go listen. And her insights have been featured by NPR, Wall Street Journal, Psychology Today, Real Simple, and other national media. So, as I said, we're so excited to have Dr. Diana Hill back on the podcast. If you love this podcast, even if you don't love this podcast, you should go and listen to episode 54. That is when we first had Dr. Hill on the podcast, and we think it's a really great episode. You can understand a little bit more about her background and her path to becoming a psychologist. But today we're going to talk a lot about her Wise Effort program that she talks about on her podcast and in her upcoming book. So we're just so excited to have you here. Diana, do you want to say anything or give you a pause for a moment?
Hi, I'm so glad to be here. Thanks for welcoming me back. And I'm excited about talking about Wise Effort with you. It's a sort of newer angle that extends beyond ACT, right? So the evolution of psychology is that it doesn't stay in one spot. ACT is now on to the next thing. We're talking about process-based approaches. And Wise Effort incorporates a lot of those sort of newer models that are much more integrative and contextual and maybe a little bit even more flexible, if it's possible, more flexible than ACT.
I see the connection, flexibility with the exercise book and now the Wise Effort book. So obviously, our first question is just, tell us a little bit about why you decided to start the podcast, what was the evolution, and obviously write this book, which we are very excited about.
Well, Wise Effort is about energy use, how we misuse our energy, we overuse it. Many people feel really dispersed right now. When I talk to a lot of my clients, they feel like they're doing more than they've ever done in their life. Like their days are more packed than ever, and they feel like they're not doing enough. This weird combination of like, I'm hustling harder, but I feel further behind. And I don't even know if the way in which I'm using my energy is useful or helpful or on track. And that's been an experience that I've had over the course of my whole life, my whole career. How do I get it focused up, but not focused up in the way of just to be more productive, but get it focused up in the way of actually aligning it with what matters to me so that I can have the biggest and best impact possible while also not burning myself out, draining out, or feeling like I'm not doing enough. So that's what Wise Effort's all about. The evolution of the podcast came from that model. Wise Effort's actually a word from Buddhist psychology, the Eightfold Path of Buddhism. I love titles with paradoxes to them. I love the combination, like Good Stress. That's a great book. The combination of we're efforting, but are we efforting in a way that is wise? And that's what the method is all about. It uses a lot of ACT, process-based approaches, but also a lot of contemplative wisdom, which is some of my background.
Type C people are definitely efforting a lot. We are efforting into pleasing other people, doing things for everyone else beside ourselves. And we're really driven by this fear of upsetting people, disappointing them, putting a burden on them. It's usually, as we've talked about before with you, developed in this childhood environment where it was safer to focus on people pleasing and keeping the peace, as opposed to being in touch with what you need and being able to communicate your needs in a way that someone will hear them and address them. So we just love to hear how this Wise Effort work might help a Type C person not only sort of get in touch with their values and desires, but also be willing to go in this other Wise Effort direction and away from this constant need to please and do for others.
Well, I don't see people pleasing as particularly bad. I actually think that sometimes in some places, knowing how this actually could be your superpower. You may know how to work a room, please a person, get the thing that you need to get done. And you can Probably, if you're a people pleaser, you have a lot of skills that are sort of actually emotional intelligence skills. You're able to read other people really well. And these are all things that yes, you develop in your early childhood, you get reinforced for. I looked at pictures of me when I was a kid. Once I was going through it, one of those, your mom or your family member kept the book of all the pictures, and every single picture had me with my head tilted to the left at like a 45-degree angle with a smile. And I was like, I wonder, someone at some point was giving me some reinforcement for this head tilt smile situation, because every single picture I'm in the head tilt smile, right? This is a thing that becomes automatic, and that's what becomes problematic, is when it's automatic and it's not chosen and it's not deliberate and it's not aligned with your values. So with wise effort, what we do in the very beginning is we get curious. The first step, the first task in becoming wiser with your efforts is to get to know yourself. And you get curious about a few things. You get curious about, what are you really good at? That could be people pleasing. You could include that in the list. I'm a great people pleaser. It actually has been quite useful in my career to know how to work a room, how to please a person, right? So what are you really good at? And what I describe that is your genius energy, what comes easily to you, what the talents, the character strengths, the personality style, the emotional intelligence that you have that other people don't have. And they may notice it in you. You're super organized or whatever. So we get curious about that, but then we get curious about the next thing, which is, how does that very genius become a problem for you? So how does your emotional sensitivity become a problem when it turns into people pleasing? I was always the person at a Thanksgiving table where we'd sit at the Thanksgiving table, and I would be totally conscious of the person 2 seats down that I knew was drinking too much, and the other person that was going through the divorce, and I could tell the dynamics of them and their partner, and then the person that was in the kitchen and not at the table. My energy was completely dispersed onto everyone else and not on my own experience at Thanksgiving, right? So that's my genius energy, which actually is quite useful as a therapist to be able to have empathy for another person or understand what's going on for them, was getting dispersed. And that's when your genius becomes your problem. The rest of the method, we start to go into like, okay, so what do we do with that? How do we actually get it better aligned? To pull it back in, as you said, reclaim it and redirect it in a way that is much more effective for you, but also for people around you, because I see energy as a flow, not just a one-way thing.
So I feel like this is what you talk about in the book when you talk about unwise efforts. So kind of maybe before we dive into strategies, it would be interesting to hear a little bit more about this, what might be sort of stories or, running away from discomfort or holding on too tight. And you also talk about like the evolutionary science behind this. This is really important for type C'ers. So would just kind of love to hear a little bit more about this idea of unwise efforts.
Yeah, I see 3 things that misdirect our energy, that pull us off track. And these are actually just 3 great questions to ask yourself when you feel that feeling of like something's off, I'm off track with my energy. The first thing that pulls us off track is that we are stuck in a story. And we develop stories at a, young age. Some of these stories are really old. They've been around for a long time. Stories like I'm not good enough, stories like I'm unlovable, stories like I have to be perfect for people to like me or for me to belong. Stories like I am better than. That's a story as well. You can also be a sort of like a perfectionistic people pleaser that puts yourself above others, sort of that martyr syndrome of like, I do everything for everybody else and nobody does anything for me. So we catch ourselves, am I stuck in a story? And that story, when we follow it blindly, will lead our energy off track. And sort of the evolutionary science behind that is that our brain evolved this frontal lobe that is a story maker. And the default mode network, which if you were to take your hand and make a fist and you were to draw a line from the front of your hand all the way down the middle to the back, that default mode network is the sort of mind-wandering storytelling network in your brain that when you do not have the practice of mindfulness or awareness of your own thoughts can run amok. So we catch ourselves, am I in a story? The second question that I have people ask when they notice that their energy is off track, they're saying yes to things that they really need to say no to. They're saying no to things that they really need to say yes to, right? Is, Am I avoiding discomfort? And that's another evolutionarily, sort of developed thing is that we humans, in order to not get hurt, not be in danger, we run away from painful things. But the problem is that in our modern day environment, most of the things that we are running away from that are painful actually don't actually harm us. And a lot of times, the very thing that you are running away from that is painful is in the same direction as the thing that you really care about. So, for example, if you really care about your partner and you haven't talked about something that's going on in your relationship, and you keep on avoiding it and you keep on avoiding it and you keep on avoiding it and it builds, you are running away maybe from your values or even from the connection and closeness that you want to have with your partner. So we run away. And then the third question that I have folks ask themselves that relates to unwise effort is, are you holding on too tight? Are you gripping? You want things to stay the same. You don't want you're avoiding change. You have a belief about who you are. I am the type of person who, and when you hold on to your identities and you hold on to things not changing, you will inevitably get rope burn because it's a rope that is constantly on the move. The nature of everything is that we are changing. 80, I just learned this the other day, 88% of the dust that is in your room right now is made up of your skin cells.
Aye.
Disgusting. But that is because your body is constantly changing. None of the cells of your body are the same as the cells last year, so everything is changing. And if you hold too tight to things not changing, including your face not changing or your body not changing or this world not changing, you will experience a lot of suffering and a lot of unwise effort in the gripping of things. So those are the three questions I encourage people to ask themselves. Am I stuck in a story? Am I avoiding discomfort? Am I holding too tight? And that is an intervention in itself to unwise effort. Just asking that question can be really helpful.
I was stuck in a story last night. I went to dinner with an old friend, and there was this moment where I forgot something. And it was something close to her family that I probably should have remembered. And I saw this sort of flash of emotion across her face, and I couldn't quite tell what it was, but it kind of triggered me of like, oh my gosh, I've offended her. I haven't been careful enough. My memory's not good enough. I need to be more attentive to what I'm saying. But I was stuck in that story and started to ruminate on it last night, started to ruminate on it this morning, not putting my energy and focus in things that are really productive for me. So I think that, that's a very common thing for type C people, that we do get stuck in these stories of, I mean, and it's hard. It's like, I'm not good enough. I'm not enough. I'm not being careful enough.
And that ruminative energy, like you can feel the energy of it, like it sucks the life out of you because you're in your head, you're in your story, you're not actually in the present moment with your friend. And then you're not actually maybe even engaging with them that you want to be engaging with them because you're 90% in your own head.
That's right.
It's
And you're
just,
not
yeah,
present with like, I wasn't present for the rest of the dinner to the extent that I
yeah.
wanted to be. So I love all of this. We'd love to hear more about the difference that you talk about between striving and wise effort. We are all striving for something, but maybe we're not paying enough attention to how we're striving. So we'd just love to talk a little bit about that.
Yeah, striving is an interesting term. I was working on this paper with Joe Sorochi and Cristobal Hernandez and Steve Hayes. A bunch of us were working on this paper on experiential attachment. And in ACT, acceptance and commitment therapy, for a long time, there was this belief that what causes a lot of human suffering is experiential avoidance, the avoidance of discomfort. So with anxiety, you're avoiding, I don't know, getting your hands dirty because you have OCD, and therefore your life gets really narrow because you can't go on an airplane, right? So, or depression, or all these different aspects of how avoiding things makes our lives inflexible and narrow. But we started to look at this other concept, which was experiential attachment as a source of our suffering. And what experiential attachment is that you're chasing things. You feel like there's something missing, that you're not whole, you're not okay as you are, or you don't have enough, or you're not good enough, but also you just don't, that you want more. And so you start to chase, and you chase after likes, and you chase after titles, and you chase after degrees, or I mean, I'll be like, I train therapists a lot, and they'll be like chasing after continue educate, like they cannot just be enough as they are and offer what their voice is in terms of sharing what they have to share, because they have to keep on learning more and more and more. Like the self-help, how many self-help books do you need to tell you that are telling you the same thing? Right? So we think that there's something outside of ourselves that's going to fill us up. We feel like there's something missing, and so we strive. We chase. I mean, I'm only saying this because I know it so well. Right? Actually, when writing Wise Effort, I had to really put like Diana, you're not allowed to read anybody else's work while you're writing this, because you are writing from your voice. Stop it. Stop trying to cite everyone else and say, blah, 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 blah. Steve Hayes says this. Someone else says, what do you say? What's your voice say? So striving. And in this paper that Joe and this group of from all over the world, Joe's in Australia or all over the world writing about this concept, Joe did this beautiful review of what's happening in the brain when we are experientially attached and when we're chasing after things. And there's this sort of dual systems thing that's going on. The dopamine system of the brain is getting overstimulated so that it is quickly getting activated, right? And you are having more and more and more craving, more and more wanting over time, because dopamine is really your wanting neurohormone. It's not a feel-good neurohormone. That's old news. New news is that it's a wanting neurohormone. Okay, so you get the degree, you get the master's, and that's not enough. Now you need the master's with the yoga certification, and now you have the yoga certification. And now you need the PhD, right? More to get the same effect. And then meanwhile, the liking part, the liking system, which is more driven by serotonin, some other neurohormones, the liking system is actually getting over time kind of habituated. So that that carrot that used to be so sweet isn't as sweet anymore. So you end up wanting more and liking less when you're in the state of striving. And it is incredibly dissatisfying, and it keeps you in that cycle. So that is very different from wise effort. Wise effort is putting your energy into places that are both satisfying, use your genius, values aligned, and bring you an experience of contentment and enoughness in the here and now, because there is nothing that you need to do to make yourself whole. You are already whole. You're just putting that wholeness out into the world. It's a very different way of experiencing life. And you can still be a super high achiever in it, but that's not what it's about. It's not about the achievement. It's about the expression of your genius energy and the expression of your wisdom in the here and now.
I think those of us that have worked in the corporate sector for a long time, I'm not there now, but I was, 20 years, various Wall Street firms, we saw so much striving and exactly what you're talking about, just more and more and more. And it was never enough. At the end, people would rise all the way to the top and still not be fulfilled. There was always something else that they wanted.
Almost wondering, I mean, this is kind of a side thought, but I'm almost wondering if, as you said, there's this disconnect, right? Ultimately, the wise effort is really getting deep, digging in and thinking about what do I really care about versus things I think I should do, either things I need to do to get that praise, the family or society or cultural, but it's that slowing down, that connecting with really trying to clear away all the things that the shoulds and the things that we could get stuck in, and realizing, as you say, what is my superpower, but how am I using it? And, as we know, there's so many people that you were just talking about striving who are so miserable. I'm thinking of it, one patient currently who's depressed and passively suicidal. And you would look at this person and with all the success they've had, never, ever, ever think that. And I think this is kind of a classic example.
Well, and wise effort extends beyond that, beyond what is it that I care about or what is it that would make me feel okay. Because I actually think we're at a place in our world right now where it has to be about more than that. The individualistic focus on even just the whole concept of like self-care. I wrote a book on self-compassion, and I fought my editors, my publisher, and I lost the fight. that I did not want to title it self-compassion. I wanted to title it compassion. I wanted to write the Compassion Daily Journal. And they would not let me write it. And they said, no, like self-compassion, that's what's trending, blah, 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 blah. I want to lose the self, because actually what I would like for those high achievers to do is to be able to find a place where they can identify their genius energy, their unique offering, their talent, be able to completely honor it, embrace it, get into their wisest self, and offer it in a way that is a benefit to this planet, to others, to their families, to their community, but do it in a way that's regenerative. Do it in a way that's satisfying and fulfilling and feels good. And at the end of the day, they do not feel burnt out or stressed out or completely like trashed by doing what they do well. And at the end of the day, they've helped someone else. And that's, for me, that's what's needed. And part of the reason why I do this book, do this work, or even wrote Wise Effort, is because I have a sort of secret agenda that I want everyone to show up with their genius and figure out what I figured out for myself, which is you do not have to end your day depleted, but you do not have to give up what you love. And you have something to offer that we need. And I don't care. I mean, I write all these, I give case examples of it. I write about people that are super ridiculously high achievers that are doing this, but also case examples from my, a pet sitter in my practice who is doing incredible work in pet sitting and in volunteering at a shelter that is making a difference in these cats and dogs' lives, right? That's enough. It doesn't have to be, the 100,000 followers on Instagram, but it does need to be something that you are putting out there, because the world needs your genius, whoever you are. And that's really the thing that I'm pretty passionate about. There's a lot of selfing right now happening, and I think it's part of our problem is the degree of selfing that we're engaging in.
I feel like this is the point that you make in the book about how to live from the back of your heart while taking action at the front. Really thinking about, the world that we all want to live in. Would you say that that's kind of what you're talking about?
Yeah, absolutely. And living from the back of the heart comes from one of my meditation teachers that teaches this beautiful meditation where you have all this stuff that's happening at the front of your heart. And it's sort of the agitations and the worries and the things that you love and all of that. But you could be the observer that sits at the back and watches it. And actually, when you look at, I've started to get into Chinese kanji. I teach a Sangha on Tuesday mornings, a class, sort of a meditation class on Tuesday mornings. And we've been going through a word each class and looking at the kanji, looking at the Chinese symbol for it. And the first word that we started with was the word for mind in Chinese, which is heart mind. And if you look up the symbol for mind or heart mind, you can't discriminate between, they're like, it's just they're together, right? The heart mind symbol in Chinese, at the top of it, has these 3 little brush strokes. And these 3 little brush strokes are considered to be the sort of the agitation of the heart, the agitation of the mind. We just sort of constantly have things coming into our mind, coming into our hearts that are irritating or pulling us, and they can be lovely or painful, right? So 3 brush strokes. But then underneath it is this long, beautiful, almost like boat-like brush stroke that holds those things. And that's considered to be the consciousness, the base, the, sort of pure consciousness that holds the agitation. And that for me is sitting at the back of the heart, or it's the heart mind. How do we, as humans that are constantly getting pulled in different directions, and our heart is full of things and our head is full of things, how do we sit in this stability at the back of our heart, the observer self, and really cultivate that wise self so that then we can take wiser action, not action that's driven by all of the little agitating things, my kids that irritate me and, left cereal. I'm like, my teenager who left cereal and milk out last night. I came in the kitchen, there was ants everywhere. I was going to and am I going to respond that way? Or am I going to connect to my teenager from the back of my heart and just be like, that's just agitation of having a teenager, you know?
I did not respond to my teenager this morning from the back of my heart. We were on to next level logistics for the weekend and I lost it.
Yeah.
And so it's one of those, take a moment, go back to really what matters and how you want to connect. One thing that we talk about a lot with our Type C community is we're often sort of out of touch with our own values, or we just sort of lost a bit of authenticity in childhood. We kind of put our true selves to the side, focused on other people. And now that we're in adulthood, we don't even really know what our values are. And so you talk in the book about, aligning your energy with your deepest values. And maybe we could just talk a little bit about that, about how to get in touch with values and how to align your energy.
Especially for people who, when you ask that question, they're like, oh,
I don't know.
Well, you just gave a perfect example where you said, my teenager this morning, I wasn't operating from the back of my heart. You felt something probably in your body. You probably had like a feeling in your body like this is off. And sometimes I'll equate sort of values work as sort of like playing a guitar. You got to, or tuning guitar. I have two guitarists. Both my boys are guitarists. And before a guitarist goes to play their song, they just run their hand through all of the strings and they listen. And you can just tell, ooh, something's off there. Like that's not the right tune. So that's one thing you can do with beginning to know your values before we even put some words on it. I mean, sure, you could go into chat and have chat generate a list of 100 values for you. But what does that actually mean? The first thing it means is there's something off or something on. Like sometimes I'll have my clients like close their eyes and just sort of like, are you leaning forward? Are you leaning to the side? Where are you feeling pulled? Like, where's this heart getting pulled towards right now? That's a sign that you have some embodied awareness about what your values are. But then there's the sort of next part of it, which has to do with what do I want to stand for? What do I want to demonstrate in the outside world? If someone were videotaping me on this interview with the Type C Personality Podcast, what at the end of the interview could they say, oh, these are Diana's values. These are the things that she cares about. It's pretty clear. She was pretty loud and clear, or she demonstrated in the way that she interacted with the people she was interacting with. So what do you want to stand for? What do you want to demonstrate with your actions? Are really only values when you are embodying them and living them and expressing them through your actions. So we get off track. We play our strings, like, something's off here with my teenager. Gosh, I'm like 80% of the time I'm like off with my teenager. And then I'm like, okay, this is a choice point. I just caught myself. I'm out of tune. And then I can use my little pegs at the top of the guitar. Sometimes it's loosening something up. Sometimes it's tightening something up. Sometimes with teenagers, you may have values around, I want to also like be like a container for all of this teenager energy. And I really value as a parent, like showing my teenager a way of living that he will be able to take out into the world after he's done here. So how am I gonna, that might be a tightening up. Sometimes it's a loosening up. Like I just need to let the milk on the counter go and connect. Right. So that's in the book. I have a whole chapter on values and talk about the what, how, and why. And I have a lot of exercises and a lot of questions and journaling questions to get at it. But it's an inner journey, and we're constantly adjusting, moving in and out of our values. And I'm not so stuck on like, you have to have your top 3 values and like put them on the bulletin board and remind yourself every day with sticking out of what your value is. So it's like, I just think it's much more embodied and lived than that.
Loved in the last podcast how you talked about the whole body yes and the whole body no. That was one of the biggest takeaways for me. I just loved it, and I really have taken that and tried to use it daily if I can remember. But it's such a nice concept.
I was just thinking that for some people who, going to go out and buy the book, do you want to describe a little bit of the format of the book just to sort of give them a sense of, is it to let them hear a little bit more about what could be in store?
Well, I wanted to write a book that would be how I practice with my clients, and also a book that I would want. So I'm like, what kind of book would I want to read? Like what is actually helpful? I mean, I've read so many self-help books. I've interviewed hundreds of people that have written books. And what I really find valuable is a combination of one, just sort of a method, a process a journey that you were going on, an inner journey. So this book has a frame and a method. The first section is about getting curious, and you get curious about what is your genius, what are your values, what is pulling you off track. And then the next section is about opening up. You open up your mind, you open up to feeling, you open up your sense of self, and you open up to change. And I really have you stepwise work through each one of these. And then the last section is about focusing your energy in the domains like your relationships and work and creativity and community. So there's a real clear frame. I find that sometimes when I read books, there's just like, you're kind of all over the place and you don't know where you're going or where you're headed. And I get confused and then I put it down. So there's a clear frame and a journey that you're going on. But the other thing about what I really liked in writing this book is that I'm also bringing in a lot of real life examples. And they're not just like case studies that like sometimes the case studies I find kind of boring. Sorry. They're not just case studies. These are like my most favorite clients ever. And I'm sharing that impacted me, and I'm sharing their story in that, as an example. Or I share the story of Kelly Wilson, who is a founder of ACT. And when I'm talking about opening up to change and his history of heroin and alcohol addiction and how he ended up being then the sort of lead founder of this incredible method, and what was the process? Like, what did he do there? How did he open up to change? And then I share my own story. But the stories are just sort of like woven in through the method. And then finally, I actually give you like concrete practices and journal exercises that you can do. Like I say, like, okay, go get yourself a blank journal. I don't want any lines on it. I want it to be blank. I want you to have a great pen because we're going to draw some stuff. I'm going to have you answer some questions, and you're going to work through this with me, maybe even with your therapist or with a friend. But this is like work. You can take your time with it. But I'm a worker bee. So I like to have like, I'm doing something with it. I'm not just reading about it, because so much of the self-help stuff, we kind of like skim through, we read, we think it's a great idea, and we never apply. So I want it to be actually something that you apply to your life that actually makes a difference in your life. That's why I wrote it.
Well, I'm super excited. We can't wait for it to come out for lots of our listeners and hopefully people all over the world to grab a copy or maybe share it subtly with someone in their life who could use it. But we just can't thank you enough, Dr. Diana Hill, for coming on the podcast today. I think that this is going to be so helpful for so many people. And as you said, it's a formula, it's strategies, but there's also so many real life examples that I think people are really going to connect to. And it doesn't feel like something that's a model that is impossible to do. It feels like something that you're probably trying to figure out already. And this is just hopefully going to give you the answers and the guidelines to actually make it happen.
Yeah, let's just remind our listeners where else they can find you, your website, your Instagram, so everyone can kind of tune in there.
Yeah, I'm at Dr. Diana Hill on all channels, including my website, and Wise Effort or Wise Effort Book. Pretty much if you Google Wise Effort Diana, you will find me. So go any way you want to go to get there, but I have a lot of resources. I offer a lot of free resources, Insight Timer, a lot of free meditations. I would say like 80% of my stuff I offer for free because I want it to be out in the world. Not everyone can access therapy. Not everyone needs therapy, but I'm hoping that people can get the benefit of Wise Effort and apply it in their lives.
And will you be doing, I mean, I think these are things that you already do, but will there be any Wise Effort retreats or workshops coming up that you will be planning that people should know about?
Yeah, I have some really fun things. I do Wise Effort, the business of therapy for therapists that want to level up, get out of your turtleneck and get out into the world with your genius. So I've been doing that, which has been so fun. It's like an incredible group of supporters, people supporting each other. It includes a private podcast. It includes WhatsApp group, lots of resources. I'm doing a program for Wise Effort relationship tune-up, which is super fun, where you come in as a couple. We work together in a webinar with a group of other couples, and then I send you off on a 3-day Wise Effort self-retreat that has a private podcast that you listen to, has all these exercises that you're going to do, just the two of you, with an option of me popping in and giving you a little consult. And you can do those 3 days consecutively, or you could do 3 days over the month, like, 3 Sundays in a month. And then we all come back together again. So that's Wise Effort Relationship Tune-Up. And then I have my Wise Effort retreat in Costa Rica in April, which is, if you want the real deep dive in terms of an energy rebalance, it's phenomenal. It's a 7-day retreat at Blue Spirit Costa Rica, right on the beach, and it's life-changing. People come back and make the big moves that they need to make in their life, but also get the deep restoration that they need to get. I bring a yoga instructor. My favorite yoga instructor comes with me, and it's the best. So that is all on my website too, if you want to check out those programs and the retreat.
Oh, lots of exciting things. So this is all on the website. Okay, great. Well, I would just like to say thank you so much for your time today. This is very interesting, and we're super excited for this book. Anything else you want to say?
No, just thank you so much. It's been a wonderful conversation. Always a pleasure to have you on, and all the best of luck with your book and all the upcoming stuff.
Thank you. You too. All the best of luck with your book and your upcoming stuff. I can't wait to talk to you about yours when you
Thank
have
you.
it ready. Yes.
Thank you so much. Okay, we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.